And thank you for joining us on Connect and Collaborate, where we come together each day to celebrate our business and industry partners. One of those partners that we have with us is Anthony Lambatos from Footers Catering. Anthony comes in once a month to talk with us about what he's got going on at Footers. And, one of the great things that we had you do, we had a collaboration and industry awards ceremony on December 7th. And I had some of the best macaroons that I've ever had in my entire life. They were these mint chocolate macaroons, and I got to go after, everyone was leaving, and we were helping clean up.
We boxed some up for you.
Yes, absolutely. I actually was stealing them off of other people's plates. Nobody noticed. I was very sneaky.
That's when you know it's good, right? Thank you, Alex. Yeah, that was a awesome event to be part of.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to let our pastry department know that they do a phenomenal job. So.
Yes, I was knocking people over to get to those. So, no, but the event itself was great. We had Jackie Hinman, who gave an overview for the Business Roundtable, the National Business Roundtable, who's one of our not our partner. We actually model after them for the Colorado Business Roundtable, as well as John Hickenlooper, the governor of Colorado. He gave a phenomenal speech, and then our main attraction there was Jim Clifton, who is the CEO of Gallup polls. I'm sure you've seen those somewhere along the way, but he also gave an awesome speech and was talking about economies, and it was interesting for sure.
I agree. I loved what he had to say about spirit, and that kind of correlates. He was talking on a very macro level of the spirit of different cities and taking the comparison of two different cities that are eerily similar, and why is one successful and why is one not. And so much of it came down to the spirit of that city, and Denver has such a great spirit. But then, bringing that down to a micro level, it's cool to see that validation of stuff we're doing in terms of how do you create a great place to work, and when you have that spirit and people are overly optimistic, great things start happening. So definitely enjoyed hearing him speak.
Yeah, well, and I got a chance to actually see your awesome team in action, right?
Thank you.
And I've heard great things about them. I know that you and April do a fantastic job as your captain and team leaders there. But I actually got to see your team, and it was astounding.
Yes, well, thank you.
How quickly they work and how great they are at it.
We are so fortunate. We have some amazing people, and to see the work they do, I'm so proud of them and what they're able to accomplish. So
absolutely. Well, I know that you had that holiday for us. What else do you guys have going on right now?
It's, December is a crazy busy time for us. It's lots of holiday parties, and it's so much fun for our team to be part of those celebrations. We really enjoy it and look forward to it.
Yeah.
But we are kind of winding down, which is nice that over the course of, between Christmas and New Year's, our team really gets to break and they get to go and celebrate with their families. So
nice.
We're ready for that. We just had our annual lip sync battle, which has become a Footers staple that is, I think my stomach still hurts from laughing. We had over 20 people participate in some sort of act, and there were costumes and props and theatrics that just were hilarious. We'll be putting together a little compilation of that we'll be posting and make available for people to see. But it's become a really fun tradition at Footers and something that our team really embraces.
Awesome. Well, and I do know that you have the Christmas spirit. I'm going to take a moment here to talk about your pants. I don't know if our viewers can see that, but we got some fancy pants on. I love this. Got reindeer and snowflakes. I'm rocking the penguin today too.
I was dropping my son off at school today, and I walked in, and the teacher said, "Look at you," and I'm looking at my son like, "What is he doing? What's it?" It's like, "Oh yeah, I'm wearing pants that a little obnoxious." So.
I think it's in the right spirit. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Sorry. And so let's get into your preparation for 2018.
Yeah. So we're gonna jump into that a little bit more. I mean, we've just done our strategic planning, but in the next segment, I want to dive into that with our guests today. I'm really excited about this because it's two people that I have a lot of respect for, and I think are doing some really cool things to help other business owners. So today we have two guests, which is awesome. We got Alex Cole, who I've been friends with for a number of years. He owns a couple of all-state agencies, and then also I've got John Chrisbens here, who is a phenomenal real estate professional with Porchlight, and the two of them came together to found a company called Producer. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. Welcome, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's going to be a fun conversation. Why don't you, Alex, start us off and talk a little bit about Producer and what that is and what you're doing with that.
Sure. So Producer is a really fun project that John and I have been working on, and it's taken on a lot of forms over the years, and it's been a kind of a fun journey to build this company together. And what we noticed was John's in real estate, I'm in insurance, and when we were around similar professionals, whether it be mortgage brokers, CPAs, financial professionals, we found that professionals like us work on an island. And you work on an island, you're by yourself, and you're making these decisions. You may have support from a company, but for all intents and purposes, it's you. Mm-hmm. And so we've over the years seen that surrounding those types of people with other professionals that are like-minded and on that same island, coming together and helping them with their business and sharing best practices and talking about successes and challenges has really made a meaningful impact on their business. And so we saw an opportunity in the marketplace to say, there's people that decide to do kind of business planning and accountability on their own. And, business planning, they may do it for a couple months at the beginning of the year, and then it goes in a drawer and they never see it again. Mm-hmm. Or there's the people that go out and they buy they pay for a business coach, which is cost prohibitive. So we saw that let's take a cost-effective approach to this. Let's surround ourselves with people that are like-minded and want the same things. And it's been a very fun journey, but I'll let...
Yeah, John, talk to us about how it differs from some of the things you've done in the past and why you think that the Producer really has something special.
There's an enormous number of industries out there that you have to go through some sort of testing. Real estate is a good example of that. I've got to go out and get a license to practice real estate and to help my clients. But notoriously, you will start working for a particular firm, and there's absolutely no training whatsoever in terms of simple strategy and developing a plan of action and a process and a footprint for how you're going to be successful. So many people run out and they do a lot of trial and error. And they do a little of this and a little of that, and you have a little bit of success here and there. But you never really receive that formal training in how to develop a simple strategy. And gosh, from real estate agents to photographers to chiropractors to mortgage brokers, there's quite a few of them out there. So that's our niche, and we hope to help those people get where they want to be.
Fantastic. Well, stay with us here on Connect and Collaborate. We'll be right back with Anthony Lambatos from Footers Catering, Alex Cole, and John Chrisbens from Producer. We'll be right back here on Connect and Collaborate. And thank you so much for staying with us on Connect and Collaborate today. My name is Alex Hopkins. I'm taking over for Tammy Schaefer for the day. And we have with us one of our favorite guests here, Anthony Lambatos from Footers Catering. And Anthony's brought a couple of his friends on today. We have Alex Cole and John Chrisbens, and they are talking about Producer. So, Anthony, take it away.
Yes, this is a very exciting conversation for me personally. As we talk so much about, working on the business versus working in the business, and one of the things I really love is putting together our plan for the following year. And I think it's a very difficult thing for a lot of business owners to do, and I'm sure you guys can attest to that. For us at Footers, we have a very collaborative culture, and so we try to bring, some of our key people together to really formulate what is this plan going to look like? What do we want to accomplish? What are the big things that are out there? And so we spent 2 days really honing in on that. But the important thing is the follow through. That then how are you making sure this gets implemented? So I want to back that up and hear from you guys. When you're working with business owners that are working on that plan for the next year, what are some of the things that they should be thinking about?
We advocate in our live event, which is how you get involved in the Producer family, of looking back on the previous year so that you're not moving forward into, using this as an example, as 2018 without really reflecting back on not only the things that were challenging to you that maybe you didn't have the success that you initially wanted to have, but also where were you successful and how do you expand upon that? So that's an important piece of what we try to impart to our attendees and to people in that family. It's just critically important to understand where you are right now, where you came from, what you did well, what was challenging to you, and then at which point the latter half of that event concentrates on giving you a very simple, straightforward strategy that you can immediately go out and implement.
Yeah, I think for me with my quote-unquote day job with Allstate, so I have 2 agencies, and when I do the business plan, when I first started, I was just so focused on the next year.
Huh.
And, you're in a sales organization, you're hitting the pedal up until December 31st, and then it starts again on January 1st. There's no downtime. And over the years, taking that time to sit with our team and reflect on the previous year and look at, again, what went well, what didn't go well. You glean a lot of information out of that conversation. So that's a huge thing to focus on, is just taking an inventory of where you were the year before. And it kind of helps you set a little bit of a vision for the following year, and then you can fill in from there. I think that's critically important.
Alex, you mentioned, you work right up until the 31st selling, and then you got to go get those parties again. So when is the appropriate time to start working this into your schedule? I mean, do you guys recommend that this starts, in July, or is it okay to wait until the latter half of the year to do that?
I have a great friend of mine who's a landscaper, and he runs around in this T-shirt, and it says, "When is the best time to plant a tree?" And it was 50 years ago and today. So people love to wait until December or January to start their business planning, but I don't think that's necessarily the route that everybody should go. Regardless of where you are in the juncture of your career and what you've accomplished, if you don't have a simple strategy or direction or focus, that may be in the middle of June. And so we have these live events throughout the entire year with the whole idea that if you're not in a position that you're having success that you want, and it's the middle of July and you want to be able to put together a roadmap, well, we'll have an opportunity to meet with you and get you going in the right direction.
And I would say, newsflash for everybody, I don't think I've ever met somebody that has a plan that is formulated on January 1st that is set in stone for the rest of the year, and it's just left there. You're constantly, evaluating it, modifying it, making sure, if you're taking on different initiatives and objectives and tactics that aren't working, you need to change that. So that quote is phenomenal, right? Because you need to constantly be looking at your business plan, and then, if you're mid-year, what can you do the rest of the year? If it's the beginning of a quarter, if it's the beginning of a week, what can I do this week that's the most important? How does that roll up to my overall plan? So you can be doing it all the time.
Yeah, I love that, because it really impacts the evolution of the business as it's working and as it's functioning. And too many times I think we look at strategic planning as this 2-day thing. We get it done, and okay, great, we're good. And in talking about these things, that this is a process that really should be done throughout the year. And you should always be looking at that plan and reevaluating and saying, okay, do I need to make a right turn here, or do I need to make a left turn, or do we keep going straight ahead? And so I think that's a really key nuance to when you're doing the planning. I know you guys work with a lot of independent professionals. Do you ever recommend that other people are included in this the business planning and strategic planning process, or is that something, John, that really should be for the key owner and person that's all that liabilities on?
Right. Well, historically, right, you send the CEO and he does all the planning and comes back to work and proceeds to tell everybody what they need to do. So one of the things that we use as an example is talking about hotels, I should say. So the guy at the front desk and the housekeeper and all that, they should have goals and objectives and action plans and things that they're striving to complete that roll up into the company's main goals. So I think it's a bit of a miss to take your COO, your CFO, your CEO and send them off to a seminar of sorts, have them collaborate with other people, and then come back and try to impart that knowledge of what they've learned in the company. I think that's a miss. Anybody who has any sort of ability to positively or negatively affect that company should be involved in that process.
And one of the things I think that's been successful for us at Footers, is sending out just even a simple, 2 to 3 question thing for all of our key employees. What do you think is working well within our organization? What do you think we need to do better? And you get some amazing ideas from some of those frontline employees of, oh wow, this is information we can actually take. We can fold into that plan, and then when it comes back to them, they feel that buy-in of like, hey, I contributed to this. They recognize these were things that I mentioned, and they've made that a priority. So I think that's another thing that for us at Footers we've found to be very successful.
I think there's an enormous amount of pressure on a CEO to year after year come up with the best ideas and how to implement those and how to put together the best strategy without input from which you typically have all these assets that work for you, and to utilize them would be a miss.
I think there's there's a balance there, right? So you can't, if for me and my organization, I've got 6 staff. It would be foolish of me to just set the goals and say, here it is, and I'll see you on December 31st, and good luck. It would also be foolish to say, you guys come up with the plan, come back to me. So I think there's a balance of saying, let me set some guideposts here, and be able to help facilitate that conversation a little bit. Otherwise, it's kind of by committee, and we start kind of going off on a number of different tangents. But, John and I, we used to go business plan together for our separate businesses up in the mountains. And I remember John had a very famous business plan that was in an Excel spreadsheet, and it was broken out by week, 52 weeks. I mean, he had that thing dialed in. But,
Implementing it was a completely different conversation.
We've narrowed it down over the years.
Get behind a week and
the dominoes
it's
start
impossible
to catch up. That's right.
But that's awesome too. I don't think people think about that all the time, to say, hey, here's somebody else that I respect as a business owner. Why don't I invest there, have them come and let's get together and work on our business plans almost side by side and kind of poke some holes into it. And I think that can be very valuable. That it's a little less pressure than, the first draft, bringing it to your employees and then having them really poke the holes in it. I love that. I think that's awesome.
I think you should be able to take your plan, and we see it in the producer events that we do. You should be able to, if I don't know your business, I should still at least be able to know what you're talking about in your plan. And there's a lot of times that people will get up and they'll talk about their plan, and as just another business professional, you look at it and you go, I have no idea what you're talking about. You need to simplify it. And that feedback from other industries and saying, hey, I faced this challenge, here's what I did.
Right.
That feedback is hugely valuable.
Because at the end of the day, we all have, bills we have to pay. We have customers that we have to acquire and keep happy, and we have, employees that we have to, work with as well. And so those, regardless of the industry you're in, those things don't really change. Right. John, you mentioned something about a simple plan, and I think people tend to overcomplicate the strategic plan. Talk about what really should be included in that plan and how you simplify it to the point where it's actually utilized throughout the year.
When I first started putting together business plans with any consistency, I think it started with about 9 pages. And by about July or August, I had finished about page 3.
Oh, no.
And so what happens is year after year, you're constantly coming back frustrated, and you're not experiencing the success you'd like to have. And a lot of that comes down to you've made a plan that's so incredibly complicated, and you stretch yourself so thin that you're not putting yourself in any position to be successful whatsoever. So one of the cornerstones of Producer is to take all that and make it into a very simple strategy. So we advocate for only one goal that you have for the entire year. So yes, there's many things that you have to do to keep the lights on and the doors open, but there's one goal, there's 3 objectives, and a variety of action plans. So we make that process exceedingly simple. And that system and that process and that approach can work for companies regardless of the size. There is a formula in place that we advocate for that has proven to be successful, and the cornerstone is to make it simple and understandable without question.
And so you mentioned, regardless of size, that's going to work. So a bigger company doesn't necessarily have to have 3 goals. It's still that one goal.
Right.
Does that goal change over the course of the year once you accomplish it? Or is this all just meant to be done in 1 year?
I don't know any company that consistently has been successful, as Alex mentioned, that takes a plan that they've formulated in January and hasn't made some mistakes and made some things they wish could have done differently, or they've gone down a particular avenue it's to the best of their ability and tried to facilitate this initiative, and it just wasn't successful. So it's critically important to constantly look at that plan and massage it and pivot where appropriate. And we advocate for that, and we teach that as well.
Well, we'll be right back here on Connect and Collaborate, talking about creating a great place to work with Anthony Lambatos, Alex Cole, and John Chrisbens. Stay with us. And thank you so much for staying with us here on Connect and Collaborate. We're having a great conversation. We have Anthony Lambatos, one of our recurring guests. He comes in every month for us. And Anthony is with Footers Catering. You did a lovely job at our Collaboration and Industry Awards. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Alex. It's always a pleasure to be here, and lots of fun. Another great conversation today. So.
Yes. So if you want to go ahead and introduce us to your guests once again.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to have Alex Cole and John Chrisbens here today. Two guys that just are a wealth of knowledge and have done wonders for helping a number of business owners. Really start taking that next level. They work with a lot of service providers and independent professionals. And what's cool is I know a lot of the companies they work with have started to grow to where they are adding employees and they're scaling their business. And so it's a little bit different from taking that company and getting it into that infancy where you can build some traction and really start to look at it as a business. And so that's one of the things that I'm excited to jump into today. As you know, we always talk about creating a great place to work, something that's near and dear to my heart, and something that I'm always learning in terms of how we're doing that. And I know Alex has put a lot of effort into that with his Allstate agency. So Alex, tell us about what makes your agencies a great place to work.
Well, first of all, I feel like I'm kind of talking to the Godfather. I mean, you could teach the class on it, so it's a little intimidating. I think I've learned a lot over the years with my agencies. I do things much differently now than I did when I first started. And I think one of those things is listening to staff. And I take that back. Hearing staff is different than listening to staff.
Yes.
Actually making sure that they know that what they're saying is being taken to heart, and they'll give us suggestions and making sure that we incorporate those. So I think when I first started the agencies, I was kind of came in with the mindset of, I'm the agency owner, I'm going to do it my way. I was a little more heavy-handed in that. And over the years, I've kind of totally 180'd, because you have to. And I've looked at it and said, what's important to you guys as staff? We want this to be a place that you enjoy to come to work, that you're proud of, and most importantly, that you feel like you have an ownership stake in. Mm-hmm. Whether that be the goals, whether that be the agency processes, whether that be the benefits, how the office is decorated. I mean, you get down to the very fine detail. But I think it all starts with having conversations frequently and consistently with your staff and being able to listen to what they're saying, actually put it, take it to heart and implement it.
Yeah, I love that. At the end of the day, people want to do work that matters. And so when they understand where their role is in that company and what they're doing, how that impacts the company as a whole, that's huge. People want to understand that. I also love what you said about hearing. I was listening to a Simon Sinek interview the other day, and he talked about true leader asks you how your day is and actually cares.
Yeah.
And so many times we get caught up and busy and, hey, how you doing? And we're in past them down the hallway before they even had a chance to respond. And so when you talk about that, actually hearing what they're saying, that's crucial. And those are the things that I love hearing about and talking to business owners, that it's not necessarily just about the ping pong table and the perks and all the fun stuff that you do. It's about caring about your employees at a level that allows them to feel like they are contributing to the success of that organization.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit, I know Allstate puts so much emphasis on giving back to the community. Talk a little bit about how that's impacted your business and your employees.
Well, first and foremost, we want to be a part of the local community that we're a part of. So I have two agencies, one in Littleton, one in Stapleton. We want to be ingrained in those communities and give back however we can. And Allstate as a corporation does a phenomenal job of giving agencies, agency owners, agency staff the ability to get involved and give back, and they match a lot of the funds and donate funds based on the time that we volunteer. We did a huge project with Boys and Girls Club of Metro Denver back in April. Mm-hmm. We had just over 100 agents and staff volunteer for a day and raised over $100,000 for Boys and Girls Club.
That's
so
awesome.
Allstate puts the money up. From an individual agency standpoint, beyond being ingrained in the community, the staff love it.
Yeah.
They feel like they want to be a part of the community. It's where they work and live. And that's another thing that early on I didn't know. I took it to, I just thought, I don't know why. I thought this is something that the agency owner does as volunteer, and they're not going to want to do this. It could not be further from the truth. They want to do those things. They want to participate. They want to say, hey, here's a charity that's near and dear to my heart. How do we get involved? So giving them the ability to do that really empowers them and makes them feel like they're contributing in a positive way. And that's become a big cornerstone of our agencies.
That's awesome. John, you work with so many different business owners. What are some of the mistakes you see them make when they go after this idea of, I want to be a great place to work?
I think there's a tendency to have a friend, an associate, or somebody that's doing something in their office, and you think that you can replicate that type of culture in yours. But businesses are different, people are different, what engages people is different, geographically where you work and around the country is different. So the ability to be successful with that, I think, has a lot to do with understanding your industry, understanding your people, understanding what engages them, what motivates them. And that's really critical, because I've seen in a variety of occasions where somebody has been successful in that space and they will just try to replicate what they've seen somewhere else. And that's just not possible. And it's also okay to think out of the box and be creative about it. And just because something hasn't been done before and you're creating precedent, that's okay as well. Because again, that's fluid. If something isn't working very well, then you have an opportunity to move in a different direction. But we always say that copying what something is doing is the best form of flattery. In this particular space, I'm not sure that's true.
I would say the other thing too with that is, it's a huge mistake if you think that the only way to build a culture and engage, get employees to engage, is just to offer more money.
Yeah.
People are motivated by different things. Not everybody's motivated by money. It's
right.
amazing to see. And again, it goes back to hearing what they're saying, making sure you're finding out what they're passionate about, what they're motivated by.
You couldn't have be more correct with that. I think that we were even joking about before the show the ping pong table. And everybody saw the tech companies putting ping pong tables. We've got to have a ping pong table, and you walk into half the offices that have a ping pong table, and there's a layer of dust about
Sure.
a quarter-inch thick on it because no one's ever playing it. And it's like, does that really make you a great place to work, or are you just trying to copy what somebody else is doing?
Right.
On the flip side, some of the things that what are some of the things that you've seen that have worked, and what's the impact that it's had, John, on some of the companies you've worked with?
Well, I am very fortunate to work for a woman right now that owns the real estate company, and she's incredibly entrepreneurial and very creative, and she has a knack for, I don't think you see this typically in most CEOs, has very little ego.
Okay.
So her ability to interact with people and continue this entrepreneur type of spirit, and that the focus is always on changing it to be better and to try to tweak this and pivot here so that the employees have the best possible experience, and they're in a place where they have the best possible opportunity to be successful. So that is, I've been fortunate to see that firsthand, and she's been a real mentor for me. But the overriding principle of what she's done is to constantly be looking for a different way to approach it. I've never met somebody who has the ability to never have something that's been ingrained into a company and decide that box has been checked off and that particular initiative is fine and we need to move on to something else. She is constantly reevaluating what puts her agents in the best possible position to be successful. And I think that's rare.
Yeah, I love that. Alex, what about you? What are some of the things, the benefits that you've seen of some of these companies that have created such a great place to work?
Well, right now we're in a market where unemployment is, south in Colorado, south of 3.
Yeah.
It does wonders for retention. Number one, if you build a good culture, your team will stick together for months and years to come, which is critical to the success of any business. So that's the number one. And I just think you get people that are more really excited about what they do, and that shows up in the results of the business. So they're more engaged. I think that's critical.
I'm going to take all of this advice and ask for a Margarita Monday. I think that will be very motivational for most of us here. Thank you so much, you guys. This has been a great conversation. We're going to have one more segment when we come back. We've got Anthony Lambatos with Footers Catering. Stay with us. And thank you so much for staying with us on Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, taking over for Tammy Schaefer, your regular on-air producer. And we have one of our favorite guests here, Anthony Lambatos. He's brought two guests with him today, Alex Cole and John Chrisbens, and they are the co-founder of Producer. And we were just talking about how to motivate your employees, and one of those was Margarita Mondays that I brought up. So
You're really holding on to that, Alex.
I feel like if I say it enough, that it will be heard.
It'll happen. It'll happen. You can come over to our place. We've got plenty of stuff for
Oh,
margaritas.
fantastic. I'll just come over on my lunch break and show up and be fine.
We do lunch every day, so you're welcome anytime.
Yes.
We used to have a postman that he would time his route, so he always hit us at noon. Oh, you got lunch again today? He'd come up and pick a few things up.
That
It's
is
like,
terrific.
yeah, this is a great conversation. We talked about creating a great place to work, and so much of that comes to employee engagement. But employee engagement can be a big thing to tackle, especially for somebody just starting out. So want to hear from you guys the best way for people to approach employee engagement when they start thinking about hiring that first, second, or even growing to 8, 10 employees and up. What are some of the things that you think people really should focus on as business owners when it comes to employee engagement? How do they get there?
Well, I think the first thing is looking at, you mentioned the words earlier, working on the business instead of in it. And so, whether you take over, in my situation, when I bought my first agency, there were staff in there. So whether you're starting with staff or you're bringing new people on, is getting an understanding of, the processes that put the business on rails, so to speak. So what are those key things, and how can we be the most efficient, the most effective with our day? And as the owner of that entity, what are the things that are most important for you to be focusing on? So as you look at those processes, and the staff are a part of that conversation, they take ownership in that. And that allows you as the owner to then start focusing on the bigger picture things. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be involved in the minutia of running the day-to-day business. Yeah. You're going to have to be, but it allows you to not get so caught up in the whirlwind, and allows you to be able to see the 30,000-foot view.
Well, and John, talk a little bit. From what I've seen, you really put together a blueprint that of where business owners need to focus their time and energy, correct?
Correct.
So talk a little bit about that blueprint and what that does for business owners.
Well, as we were mentioning earlier, I think there's a tendency, if you are an overachiever or you've had some success in your business, there is a tendency to want to pile on more work, right? We are wired that way, especially people who are very entrepreneurial in nature and have been successful, to keep striving and moving forward. I'm going to do more this year than I did before. Statistically speaking, though, nothing could be further from the truth. When you narrow your focus down, as we advocate for in our live events and the events that we have in the producer family, of having one goal, you've got to determine in this given year, what is the most important thing that you want to accomplish this year, and narrow it down to one thing. And then you have a roadmap and a process to do that. As we mentioned earlier, then if you're implementing that, you have an opportunity possibly to look at other portions of the business as we talk about employee engagement, and then possible massage that or pivot, because you've got a plan that's determined your number one goal for the year. You're engaged, you're doing it, you're in process, you're having some success. So that's the one thing that we really, if there's nothing you get out of being involved in the organization, it's that we're going to take whatever you're doing and we're going to simplify it, with the end result that the chances are you're going to be much more successful as a function of us taking your, as I mentioned earlier, your 9-page plan down to one simplified plan, which again allows you to move into some other avenues and some other things that you may want to accomplish, as we've discussed, employee engagement.
Well, and that narrow focus is something that I love, because I think it shifts your mindset from being reactive to proactive.
Mm-hmm.
I
Sure.
talk to so many people, and it seems like we can all relate that this metaphor of you're driving to work, and as you're getting really close, a line starts to form at your door, and you kind of settle in, and you start to say, all right, come on in, and it's emails, and it's almost like you're playing whack-a-mole, and the emails, got it done, okay, phone call, got it done, somebody's got a question, got it done, whack, 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 and you spend all day just whacking these moles, this line of problems and issues that is formed at your door, and before you know it, the day is over, and you haven't really done any meaningful work. You've maybe solved a lot of problems, but there's nothing you've done to really advance your organization. And so just having that narrow focus of knowing this is the big thing, and even if you're spending the first hour of your day just focused on that, the progress that you make toward that end goal, I can imagine people get there relatively quickly.
We work with a lot of realtors, you might anticipate, because it fits into our niche of people who work on an island and don't typically have a lot of training on simple strategy. And one of the things that we joke about is realtors will come into the seminar and they want to buy a new car, they want to go on a 4-week vacation, they want to do $15 million in sales, they want to hire a new assistant, and they'd like to start a team of 4 people by the end of the year. Well, what happens, as you might anticipate, is that the chances of you completing all those are absolutely zero. So what we advocate is say, hey, those are all things that you might want to do over the course of your career that will ensure your success, but let's take one and let's nail that. Let's drill down on that one objective and make you wildly successful with that one goal. And then we'll take on another one the following year. And you'd be surprised how many people don't do that. That they don't understand that your plethora of things you want to accomplish this year ends up being what holds you back from completing any of them.
Right. Alex, transitioning to that, let's talk a little bit about accountability, because accountability is how we essentially get stuff done. On a twofold, talk a little bit about accountability, and it's starting with the owner, and then how that impacts employee engagement within the organizations you see and your own organization.
Well, we talk a lot about it with Producer, because accountability is essentially the capstone to good business planning. And John and I had a conversation several months ago. We just said accountability, for whatever reason, has a very negative connotation to it, and it really shouldn't be that way. It can be a very positive conversation, whether that's accountability conversations within your own organization, or accountability with another business professional. John's great with his making calls for real estate. It's him and another realtor from a totally separate company meet every day and make their phone calls. That's accountability. From inside the organization with our staff, we meet once a week. They know what their what are the processes or tasks that are on their list for that week that they're taking ownership of. Mm-hmm. They're going to report back the following week on here's where I'm at, here's some of the challenges or obstacles I may be running into. It's not a negative conversation. It kind of ties back to the goals, right? And simplifying the plan. It's all about leverage. And if you can identify the tasks and the action items that are going to move the ball forward on your goal, those are the things you want to focus on. So from accountability, it's what are those tasks and those action items we're taking on, and what are we doing to accomplish those? Where are we at? What support do you need? And how do we get you there?
I think that's awesome. We are toying around with taking our org chart and creating what's called an accountability chart, and seeing where those mimic each other and saying, okay, in this job function, what are you at the end of the day accountable for? And making sure that we don't have 2 people that are accountable for the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so that it really, because of the old adage, when 2 people are accountable for it, no one is. And mm-hmm. so really focusing on if this is the thing we're going to focus on, then that's under your umbrella, and we're coming to you if it doesn't get done. And it makes it very clear for that. So we'll see how that works out, but
we see it a lot within Producer. We talk in smaller groups of 10 or 12 people, and part of our biweekly conversations with these folks is going around and saying, okay, well, 2 weeks ago you said that the number one thing you needed to do was set up 5 coffee meetings. Did you do it or did you not do it? Well, I didn't do it because of XYZ excuse. Being around other peers and sharing what you're doing and what you're not doing has a huge impact on your success.
That's great. Anything, John, you want to add to that community of business?
Just real quick on the accountability. Okay. The other thing that you start to identify is why people can't get that task done. So you're coming in, you're saying, I was supposed to do these 5 meetings, And you come in, and eventually you start to unearth, well, why aren't you doing these? We need to find another creative way for you to get these things done. And that's sort of a byproduct of just coming in and reporting whether you had something done or not. Real quick to answer your question, one of our cornerstones or our core values is collaboration and community. When you surround yourself with people at a similar station in their career, you're all facing some of those same challenges. So
Right.
we bring those people together, and that's part of that producer family, and everybody profits because the chances are you're running into some challenge and obstacle. The guy across the table, more than likely, has ran into the same thing as well at some point.
And John, where can people find more information about Producer?
So we made a website. We made it difficult to remember. So
good.
Producer is Producor, not ER. So that's sort of the running joke. Make it difficult for you to remember, and we make a joke of it that maybe you will remember it.
All right. Thank you so much. It has been a great conversation. We always appreciate having you on, Anthony. Alex, John, good luck with Producer, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good work.
Yeah.